Hi gang, it's Trader Dave, and I wanted to do a video on one of the tools that I use in my trading strategy called correlating pairs. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about it. There's a lot of information out there about correlating pairs. There's even systems in place that takes advantage of correlating pairs. But this video today is just a tutorial on how to create your own grid of correlating pairs. So what do I mean by correlating? We got to first start there. So the best way to show you is just to give you an example. I'm going to flip over to my MT4 trading platform, and I'll pull up one of my grids or one of my correlating pair profiles. And in the top window up here, we've got the Euro US, and then we have the US franc in the bottom window. And as you can see, when the Euro US is trending up, the pound or the Euro franc is selling off. So this would be an example of a non-trending pair. It does not correlate. It basically mirrors itself in the opposite direction. And again, I talked about, you can take advantage of these small correlations, and there's a lot of information out there that takes advantage of it, but in the long term, they basically mirror each other. So you have a rally in the Euro US, you have a sell-off in the US franc. Let's take a look at a trending pair. I'll pull up my second correlation profile here. Top window, we've got the Euro US, we have the pound US in the bottom window, and as you can see, when we have a rally, we have a corresponding rally in that pair. Okay, it doesn't always mirror it sometimes, and again, there's that information that you can take advantage of and get more information on it, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I wanted to show you trending versus non-trending. This would be a trending pair. Whenever you have a rally, you will have a similar rally in that pair. Okay. Now, to give you even a further example, you can see down here I'm actually long the Aussie-US pair. Okay. And in looking at the Aussie-US pair, if I had an opportunity that came up, for example, looking at my daily grid up here at the top, this daily grid up here, if I'm looking at, if an opportunity comes up to say short the US CAD on that Aussie-US pair, I would probably not take any long positions in that in that US pair, because history has shown that the Aussie-US versus the US CAD is a non-trending pair. 96% of the time it is not trending. When you have a rally in the Aussie-US, you have a sell-off in the US CAD. So I would probably not take any long positions in the US CAD since I'm already long the Aussie-US. So that's what we mean as a tool to help traders make better decisions when placing their trades, giving you the edge in the Forex markets. But this tutorial today is to show you how to create your own grid, your own correlation grid. And I specifically left the weekly data empty because I wanted to show you how to do it from the beginning. So we start with just a grid. We want to create a grid. This is just a framed, all the cells are framed. We have all the pairs that I trade, which is the majors on the columns, and then I create a row of the same across the top. And then you have your information in the middle. Okay. So we're going to start, we got to get the data first. So we're going to cruise over to MT4 Trading, the MT4 Trading platform. And up on the Tools bar, drop the Tools menu down. We are going to select the History Center. Now in the History Center, it has all the pairs that whatever particular MT4 trading platform you have, all the pairs that are available, as you can see. And since I only trade the majors, I only look at the majors. When you open up whatever pair you're looking at, like in this instance, I'm looking at the Euro US, it has all the minute data down to the monthly data. Now we're going to focus on the weekly data, so we're going to click on it and pull in that data into the data window. One thing I did find that what you have to do is sometimes the History Center doesn't pull in all the data, so you want to double click on it a couple of times to make sure you've got all the data. My mouse, okay. It's hard to see my mouse when these videos are recording, so I'm having to jump around. I apologize for that. I have to move my mouse around a couple times to see it. And here we are again. So double clicking on it we should pull in all the data for you. Okay. Next step then is to go ahead and export that data. So we'll cruise over here to the export button, and you'll want to save it to a place that you can remember. I created a price data folder on my computer, and that's where I will save it. And then we can just go ahead and get out of the history. Just go ahead and close it, and then minimize it. Alright, so the next step is to go ahead and open that up. So I've already got my price data folder open. As you can see here, I've got the Euro US, the weekly data. I'll want to open up or just click on it or double click on it based on your computer settings. And let's go ahead and take a look at it. Alright, so the data we've got is from 1990 all the way to the current, the last week here, which was the week of April 3rd. And one thing I do want to note as well, you'll want to make sure you pay attention to these dates, simply because, as an example, the U.S. Kiwi pair, it didn't start trading until 2005. So any data prior to that is going to be of no use to me. So I definitely want to get rid of that data. So I basically just highlight the data and I delete it. Okay. For purposes of this tutorial, I've already taken those steps and have done that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. The only data that we're concerned with is this column right here. This is the closing data. We only want the closing data for building our correlation tables. Okay. So once you've highlighted that data, you want to bring it over to your other spreadsheet, to your one that you're creating your grids on. At the very bottom, I actually created different tabs for my data, starting with the hourly, the 4-hour, the daily, and the weekly. And as you can see, I've already got my weekly data in, and you can also see that it didn't start, and I started the data, matching data in 2005. It was 5/22, the week of 5/22 of 2005. You just want to make sure that this data is on this day across the board the same when you're making and building your correlation tables. Now I've already gone ahead and completed all the data. So the next step, after you've entered all this data or transferred all this data into your spreadsheet, the next step is to go ahead and start building your table. And depending on the pair that you're trading, you need to remember that, either write it down or whatever. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the euro versus the pound. Okay, the euro versus the pound. And essentially what you'll want to do to create or to start any formula in Microsoft Excel is with the equal sign. So you type in equals, and the formula for that is CORREL, open parenthesis. And what that does is it's now asking, the spreadsheet is asking, what's your first array versus your second array. So we'll cruise down here to my data sheet, which is the weekly data sheet. And remember, it was the euro versus the pound. Come up to the top, and I'm going to select that column. And you can see in the formula window that at equal correls, open parenthesis, I'm on the data weekly 1 tab, and the column I selected was the B column. Now you can select any source of data. You can select any cells that you want. I select the columns simply because as I add more data to this spreadsheet, which will be on I haven't decided yet if it's going to be on a weekly or a monthly basis. As I add more data to it, I want it to update my tables. So that's why I selected the column versus specific cells. And then you separate that with a comma, and then you select your next column, which for me was the pound. So I've got the euro versus the pound, and then we close parenthesis to close out the formula, hit enter, and now we have a number in the grid. Ready, it's already correlated. This is the correlation number between the euro and the pound. Okay, so let's do another one. We're going to do the euro versus the yen. So remember that, euro versus the yen. So we equals, CORREL, open parenthesis, come down to, where's my mouse? There it is. And we'll select the euro column versus the yen column. Close parenthesis, enter, and now we have a number pop in for the euro versus the yen correlating pair. Okay. Now I'm going to put this video on pause, go ahead and fill out the rest of this table, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright gang, I'm back, and as you can see, I've gone ahead and filled in my grid, and if you'll take a look up here in the actual formula window, you can actually see that I'm on the weekly tab, the tab that I created for the week. And and then the data does change according to the pairs that I'm correlating against. Okay, so now it's time to make the grid look pretty, like what we've got up here on the other grids as the example. You're probably wondering why I've got these grayed out. The reason they're grayed out is because it is just basically a mirror of itself. In other words, I already know that the pound yen pair is created here, so I don't want a pound yen pair up here. Those two numbers would be basically the same. So that's the reason why those boxes are grayed out. I only want to see the information as it correlates to the pairs that I'm looking at. Okay, so let's time to make it look pretty. All right, so I'm going to highlight all this information, and I like to have mine in bold. So the shortcut for bold off of the keyboard is a Control and the B key on your keyboard. So Control B kind of highlights all that data, and I only want to see 2 digits past the decimal. So I'm going to highlight those columns, and up on your toolbar, you're going to notice a couple tools. Now, depending again on the version of Microsoft Excel that you use, I use version 2007. This is on my ribbon, what they call the ribbon, and the number here is the increase decimal, or the tool is either increase decimal or decrease. So I want to decrease my decimals down, oops, one too many, down to 2. Okay, all right. So going over to the next one here, and I'm just going to keep my mouse on that, and we'll decrease it down to 2. 2. Alright, so now we've just got 2 decimal points past it, and I'll go ahead and just gray out these cells. On my ribbon I've got the styles, and you can pick any style, doesn't matter, pick anything you want. I like the gray style because it grays it out. Again, forgive me for the mouse jumping around. It's hard to see it when the video is recording here. And here's the last one. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to conditional format the cells and make it look pretty. All the greens, reds, and light yellows that you see up here. And that is a function of formatting, conditional formatting. So I'm going to highlight all the cells here, come up to my conditional formatting, and I'll select, I like color scales. And the first one I select is the green to red. So basically what I'm looking at here is anytime that it is above 0, it will, as it increases, it will turn a darker green, and then below 0, as it increases, it will turn a darker red. So for example, I used that example, I was long the Aussie US, as you can see down here, and then for example, if I were looking, if an opportunity came up to go long the US CAD, based on the time frame I'm using, I'm on the weekly time frame, history has shown that when this pair is trending versus, either selling off or rallying, its corresponding pair, the US CAD, is either selling off or rallying. So I would not look at an opportunity to go long on the US CAD. Since I'm already long on the Aussie US, probably would not take a trade going long the US CAD if that opportunity came available to me, simply because if I'm holding this position longer than a couple of days, history has shown that pair to be a non-trending pair. In other words, when we have a rally, we have a sell-off in that corresponding pair. So that is corresponding in a nutshell. Now you can get really fancy with this stuff. I actually took the numbers and I created what's called a timetable or a time grid, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I actually took each pair against its corresponding pair and grouped it by time frame. So I basically have the period up here, and then I've got the 1 hour, 4 hour, daily, and the weekly. And as you can see, it looking at the data, it produced some pretty interesting correlations. Okay, as you can see, the euro against the pound, it correlates across all time frames. It's in lockstep most of the time across all time frames. But then you've got some that don't lockstep, or they start correlating as the time frames get longer. So there's just a lot of interesting correlations that happen between these pairs. And like I said, you can get as fancy as you want. I basically am just using this as a tool. If I'm already long or short one position, I'll take a look at any if an opportunity appears, I'll take a look at that corresponding pair to see what it has done in the past, and that helps me make a better trading decision. So that's it, gang. I wanted to kind of show you how to create your own spreadsheet. As always, are correlating pairs in Microsoft Excel. And if you've got any questions, any comments, you're more than welcome to email me. And I got a pop-up here, don't know why. Correlating pairs. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free. You can email me or leave comments on the post or below this video. And until we meet again, gang, happy trading.